I want to show you how we actually fix a broken tip on a knife. This is a pretty nice old case knife. It's obviously been used and abused quite a bit, including someone decided to try to make a screwdriver out of it. Probably none of you guys have ever done that, I'm sure. But anyway, so we have a pretty nice blade here with no point. What we're going to do is we're going to start, we have an 80 grit belt here, which comes in our home sharpening kits, and I'm going to use this 80 grit just to quickly work down this knife where we can get the bulk of the metal off to get another point on the knife. And what we're going to do is we're going to, let's see if I can point a little bit with this other knife. Right here is where the end of our knife is right now, so we're going to have to start a curve up at that point and work it down. There'll be quite a bit of metal that's going to have to come off here to bring this point back in. Now, one thing you have to remember on some knives when you have a broken point, when you go to close it, you're going to need to look and make sure where the highest point that you're going to start rounding your blade off is still down in the case of the knife. If not, it could stick up and easily catch someone. So, as always, safety glasses on before we start any machines. Not that we've ever had a problem, but that's just what we do in the shop. So, we'll turn this on. Now, what we're going to do, talk here a minute before I turn it on, it's too loud, is I'm not going to keep it at the normal angle that I would hold it. I'm going to have it a little bit more of about almost a 45-degree angle, so that we're still pointing the knife down the direction of the belt's running like this, but that'll enable us to get that rounded off pretty quickly. So let's give it a shot here. So as you can see, very quickly, I was able to get that shape that I wanted. Now it's just a matter of going ahead and sharpening this knife just like we normally would. So I'm going to go ahead and go down through the process here real quickly. One of the most important things to remember with these machines is when we put the belts on, these machines will have a spring tensioning in the back here, and normally when the bolt is loose down here, the spring is what actually keeps the tension on the belt. But I personally like the belts a little bit tighter. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of slap or flop in the belt, and so what we do is we'll use an 11/16 inch wrench on this. It's got a bolt in the back side. And we use that wrench just to loosen the belt, or loosen the tensioner first, and get it going in the right direction here. There we go. So as you can see, when I loosen that, this back part I want to just a little bit more. Pull forward. This is actually how we take the belts off, is just pulling that forward. There you can see how that moves. Moves this back pulling. So when you're putting a belt on, switching your different grit belts, it's very simple. Just slide it on there and you're ready to go. It's that simple and that quick. Now, ordinarily you can see the amount of flap in this belt just using the spring. Now if I was to turn that on, it's going to have a tendency to want to run off of there, so I tighten it just a little bit. So I'm going to reverse my wrench, and as I take the wrench on the back side, I'm actually holding up against this bar to move that spring back. Just tighten a couple turns, and now you can see the stiffness of the belt. And this is about what we like. We want that give in there so that we can create the convex edge. And it'll run much smoother without any slapping on it. So I'm going to go ahead and take this knife and head on down. We're going to the 600 grit belt right now. Before I do that, let's just give you an idea of how dull this knife is. See if we can cut any kind of, obviously we cannot cut any paper at all with this thing. So we'll be able to test it again here in just a couple of minutes. We'll work this knife about 3 times on each side, and the key to it is to keep that knife moving pretty fast. You don't want to get the blade hot at all, and it's not. So we're going to move on down to the 800 grit. Most people's biggest concern in sharpening with these, they go, oh my goodness, you don't have a guide. And, you know, believe it or not, it's absolutely not a problem. Most people out the first couple times can get this down pat to where the angle and the edge is even more consistent than what most knives come new out of the box. So if we get through here, I'll see if we can get this in the light so you can see the result. You're noticing some sparks, especially when we're down on these belts. You will very seldom see that on most knives. This case knife has some really hard steel in it, but most knives you will not see any sparks coming off of these belts at all. Now we're going to finish up down here on the stropping belt, and before we do that, we'll show you just real quickly how we put the compound on these belts. This little piece of compound will probably last you about 2 years. When we stroke it on the belt like this, as we move the belt around, it actually starts to what we call charge that belt and get that compound worked into the leather. Now, you can use either the smooth side out on a belt, or you can use the rough side. In this instance, I'm using the rough side. It holds the compound really well, but either side works well for stropping. And this strop's going to minimize or take off the final burrs of this blade.